The group of Mexican search and rescue workers, known as TOPOS, continue to look for bodies and possible survivors that might still be trapped under the rubble following the magnitude 7.2 earthquake that shook Haiti last week. Tropical storm Henri makes landfall in Rhode Island and remains a threat to the northeastern United States. And the U.S. President Joe Biden says he's still planning on finalizing the evacuation from Afghanistan by August 31st, but leaves the door open to extending the deadline if necessary. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada, and now we begin with the news. The group of Mexican search and rescue workers, known as TOPOS, continue to look for bodies and possible survivors that might still be trapped under the rubble, following the magnitude 7.2 earthquake that shook Haiti last week. In the small port city of Lecce, the TOPOS International Group used an electronic device to search for possible life in the wreckage. The group of Mexican rescuers focused on a quake-damaged two-story home where equipment that allows them to detect sounds beneath the rubble caught some noise.
We have an instrument to detect life, and 5 times it has given us a reading that has made us suspect, though we cannot confirm it, that there might be a person inside that is breathing but not moving. We will be working to the limit of our ability, but the life detection instrument could have given us a false positive reading.
On Sunday, local leaders of Lecce picked up between 750 to 808 kits, consisting of sugar, rice, and water, which they will later be distributed to residents in their respective neighborhoods in the aftermath of the 7.2 magnitude quake. According to authorities, the earthquake killed more than 2,200 people, injured more than 12,000, while hundreds remained missing.
The situation is not good. As you can see, it is raining. The sun is beating us. There is not a person who lives well. We all want to go to our homes. My house was smashed, collapsed. I don't have the right to sleep in the Gabion soccer field, and I need a house to live. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to find food.
And the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, along with the United Nations Development Program Administrator, Ashim Steiner, traveled to Haiti to sympathize and show their solidarity with the Haitian people and government. And also we have another information. Israel has launched antibody testing for children aged as young as 3, seeking information on the number of unvaccinated youths who have developed protection against coronavirus ahead of the new school year. Despite surging daily infections caused by the highly transmissible Delta variant, Israel's government insists this one to avoid the hardships and developmental setbacks caused by school closures. The National Serological Survey is focused on kids between the ages of 3 and 12, who are not yet eligible for the jab, which is nearly 1.5 million children.
I came with my children to undergo an antibody test to see if they ever contracted COVID-19 without our knowledge. If they were ever sick, then we will receive a green pass and an exemption from quarantine, also so that they will not have to undergo frequent PCR tests.
My son received a positive result for COVID-19 antibodies. Apparently, he contracted it and we did not know. That means he will get a green pass and be able to go to school safely.
And now we continue with other topics regarding the pandemic. In Martinique, hospitals are overwhelmed with the influx of COVID-19 patients. Soldiers who came as reinforcements from mainland France deployed 20 military intensive care beds in just a few days. France's government warned of an extremely serious COVID-19 crisis in the country's overseas territories, especially in the Caribbean. Martinique tightened a lockdown and told tourists to leave, while similar measures were also expected on the nearby French overseas territory of Guadeloupe. Authorities in Martinique announced that all non-essential shops will now be closed. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. U.S. authorities have asked millions of people living along the East Coast in the path of the tropical storm Henri to prepare for torrential rains and storm surges. Henri arrived in eastern Long Island. The weather phenomenon recorded maximum winds of 120 kilometers per hour on Saturday and was moving northward, located 290 kilometers southeast of Montauk Point on Long Island. Intense winds and surge from potentially dangerous tides will affect distant areas east and west of New Jersey coast.
We're here today to open up a shelter to take care of clients' immediate emergency needs during this disaster.
This goes back towards Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. Back then, they had the hurricane and some people were turned away from the shelters because they had their pets with them, and ultimately they didn't fare very well. So the federal government stepped in and said, now anybody who wants to go to an emergency shelter like this is allowed to bring their pets. So that's why we have the animal shelters here. We'll have an ACO on around the clock the entire day for as long as this is open.
We're here today.
And will remain on topic. Hurricane Grace has left at least 8 people dead in Mexico. It was caused heavy rains and strong winds on Saturday, causing flooding, power blackouts, and damage to homes. The storm made landfall in Mexico for a second time during the night near the Veracruz state as a major Category 3 storm, triggering warnings of mudslides and significant floods. The streets of Tecolula, home to about 24,000 people, were littered with fallen trees, signs, and roof panels as down and broke. Grace was weakening rapidly over land, but still causing very heavy rains and flooding over portions of east central Mexico.
I turned around to go into the house, and that's when the roof came off the hill, and they were all down there, my wife and my 6 children. As they were taking them out, they took out my wife and my other children. They pulled out a 4-year-old, then an 8-year-old, a 2-year-old girl, and a newborn who was only 15 days old.
And this Sunday, the Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Ljungberg has announced his resignation. Löfven has declared that his resignation will be effective as of November. He also announced that he will resign from his position as a leader of the Social Democratic Party, of which he has been president for 10 years. In statements, he assured that the 2022 electoral campaign will be left in the hands of someone else, and that this early resignation is intended to provide the best conditions for his successor.
I now have a statement to make. In next year's election campaign, the Social Democrats will be led by somebody else other than me. I have announced to the executive committee of the party and to the chairman of the election committee that I want to leave my position as party chairman at the party congress in November, and then also ask to be dismissed as prime minister. I have earlier been completely prepared to continue for another term of office, and thereafter hand over the baton, but this decision has now matured for a while. I will soon have been party leader for 10 years, prime minister for 7. These years have been fantastic. My focus has tirelessly been on doing what is best for Sweden and for all the people that live here in our fantastic country.
And China has launched the second phase of the satellite TV project, which will provide TV services in over 400 villages in Uganda. Jian Jiqin, Economic and Commercial Counselor at the Chinese Embassy, said the project is critical, especially for students in rural areas that had difficulty in accessing educational information. The first phase of the project has benefited over 500 villages and more than 500,000 people in Uganda. The project is one of the results of the resolutions of the 2015 summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation held in Johannesburg, South Africa, in which the Chinese government pledged to provide satellite TV in 10,000 African villages.
Through the satellite, we can get together, work together, learn together, and then people will get the access to the outside world, to expand their vision and to understand the world and to encourage them to work even harder.
And this is our projector that is going to be given to the different areas, especially schools and the community areas where people can come and do public viewing. This is meant to enable that people, those who can't afford at home, to be able actually to go to their community centers and watch for free.
And members of the ethnic group Kemant fled to Sudan due to the increase of the armed conflict in the country. According to UN reports, around 200,000 people have been displaced from their homes in Amhara, of which more than 60,000 are sheltered in Sudan. The international organization also estimates that the conflict has left some 400,000 people in conditions of extreme poverty.
The regional government attacked us through the Fano. The Amhara Special Forces and the Amhara militias. They were using heavy weaponry to bombard and burn homes.
The numbers are large. We are now in a school and the space is not enough for the current number of people. However, we have taken action. We have distributed plastic covers to prevent rain, and we have provided 3 houses and blankets to protect them.
In Malaysia, Ismail Sabri Yaakob was sworn in as the country's new prime minister, following the resignation of his predecessor on August 16. Sabri Yaakob was sworn in the King of Malaysia, Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmad Shah, at the National Palace in a ceremony broadcast live, in which he wore a traditional outfit. Sabri Yaakob replaces outgoing Premier Muhyiddin Yassin, who resigned after losing the support of the lower house of Congress, which was seen by his detractors as his failure in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. We have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. U.S. President Joe Biden said he's still planning on finalizing the evacuation from Afghanistan by August 31st, but leaves the door open to extend the deadline if necessary. Speaking at the White House, Biden said 11,000 people have been airlifted from Kabul in a 36-hour period this weekend, but he did not provide details. Tens of thousands of people remain to join the airlift, which has been slowed by security issues and the U.S. bureaucracy. Afghanistan will be the main topic of discussion when Biden and leaders of the Group of 7 industrialized nations meet virtually on Tuesday.
Going on among us in the military about extending. Our hope is we will not have to extend, but there are going to be discussions, I suspect, on how far along we are in the process.
The Taliban are cooperating with British paratroopers while they're screening eligible evacuees at Kabul airport. As the militant group oversees the crowd, paratroopers are sorting through the documents of hopeful evacuees. Lieutenant Colonel Will Hunt from the British Army's Parachute Regiment said while the truce was strange, it was necessary as opposing forces seek to avoid a humanitarian crisis. Kabul's airport, now one of the only routes out of the country, has seen days of chaos since the Taliban entered the capital on August 15th.
Outside this Taliban is kicking the people with a rifle, with everything. I put in a wood with the people. You can check in. Outside this Taliban is very fighting with the people.
The main thing for us is to make sure that we have a smooth possible system to get those entitled people through. And at the moment, that involves an element of the Taliban being here alongside us, as you will have seen while you've been here. And ultimately, we have to put our thoughts of previous tours aside, because ultimately everybody is trying to get the same situation here, which is avoid a humanitarian crisis and bring those people through that need to be.
But it's just the strangest thing, isn't it? Strange times, I suppose.
It's strange times, but like I say, if we weren't here, who would be? It needs to be done. And as you said, everybody's feeling it, but ultimately you put that to one side and get on with the job.
Outside.
And in the western Afghan city of Herat, not far from the border with Iran, local residents complain over the critical situation of the economy. One resident said that unemployment, poverty and misfortune are high.
In Afghanistan, things were expensive. There was war, and now things have become even more expensive. None of the authorities have paid any attention to this. Our people are facing unemployment, poverty, and misfortune. On top of that, there's war and suffering too. People are going abroad because of unemployment and increased prices. The government has not paid any attention to this. We want the government to focus on the problem so that Muslims can afford to buy things. Unemployment, poverty, and misfortune are high in Afghanistan.
An Indian Air Force plane carrying 168 people from the Afghan capital, Kabul, landed near New Delhi on Sunday. A spokesperson from the Indian External Affairs Ministry said the passengers included 107 national Indians and 61 from other nationalities. Meanwhile, another group of 87 Indians who were evacuated from Kabul to Tajikistan on Saturday. India began evacuating its nationals last Sunday after the Taliban swept into Kabul. The press trust of Indian news agency said around 400 Indians were believed to be stranded in Afghanistan. The Israeli army has struck Gaza after clashes between its troops and Palestinian protesters. The clashes on the border left dozens injured, including an Israeli policeman and a 13-year-old Palestinian boy who were both critically wounded. The clashes came exactly 3 months after Israel and the Hamas rulers reached a truce, following their deadliest fighting in years. The president of Iran, Ebrahim Raisi, has received the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Japan, Toshimitsu Motegi, in Tehran to discuss bilateral relations between the two nations. Also, the Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif met with his Japanese counterpart in Tehran, a meeting in which they discussed various actions to strengthen strategic activities and boost diplomatic efforts to reduce tensions in the region. Motegi is also expected to meet with other Iranian officials. This is the first visit by a Japanese official to Iran since the election of Ebrahim Raisi as the new Iranian president. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.